The Aegis station hung like a jeweled spider at the center of its web. Delicate strands of light, marking the approach vectors for the 47 species gathered for the Galactic Peace Summit. Dr. Marcus Rivera stood at the observation deck, watching the procession of diplomatic vessels making their final approaches. 3 Earth ships, modest in size compared to the others, maintained position at the outer marker, a visual reminder of humanity's newcomer status. "They're here to see the curiosities," Marcus murmured, adjusting his translator implant with practiced fingers. First contact was just the appetizer. Now they want to see if we can behave at the dinner table. He didn't need to activate the implant yet. No aliens within earshot, but the familiar gesture calmed him. At 34, Marcus had become Earth's premier xenolinguist through a combination of natural talent and genetic predisposition to language acquisition that bordered on the supernatural. His brain formed new neural pathways for alien syntax at 3 times the rate of his peers. What that meant in practical terms, he was the only human alive who could speak 17 non-human languages without technological assistance, which made him the obvious choice as translator for humanity's first formal diplomatic summit. "Dr. Rivera," the voice came from behind him, measured and formal. "The Xanthari delegation requests your presence at the preliminary greeting ceremony." Marcus turned to face Ambassador Kelleth, her tall, willowy form draped in the traditional blue-silver robes of her people. The Xanthari had been humanity's first alien contact 5 years earlier, and Kelleth had personally overseen much of Earth's integration into the wider galactic community. "So much for my moment of quiet contemplation," Marcus said with a smile. "Lead the way, Ambassador." Kelleth's 4-fingered hand gestured toward the main concourse. "The tribunal representatives are particularly interested in meeting you. Your language abilities have become something of a curiosity." "I'm not here to be an exhibit," Marcus said, falling into step beside her. "I'm here to make sure humanity doesn't accidentally declare war while trying to complement someone's exoskeleton." "Your species' humor remains perplexing," Kelleth replied, but the subtle vibration in her voice indicated amusement. "Nevertheless, your skills serve an important function. The translation devices are prone to cultural missteps that living interpreters can avoid." As they walked through Aegis Station's sweeping corridors, Marcus took in the architectural marvel that served as the galaxy's neutral ground. Flowing lines of luminescent material intersected with crystalline structures that seemed to defy gravity. Holographic indicators hovered at intersections, displaying route information and standardized galactic pictograms. 3 days, Marcus mused aloud. 3 days of handshakes and treaty signings, and humanity joins the fold. Hard to believe we spent thousands of years wondering if we were alone in the universe. "Many species experience a similar adjustment," Kelleth said, "though few arrive with your particular talents." They entered the Grand Concourse, a massive open space at the heart of the station, where representatives from dozens of worlds mingled in preparation for the formal ceremonies. The variety of life forms still took Marcus's breath away from the crystalline phalanx, who communicated through light patterns, to the gaseous melon, who required special containment suits to maintain physical form. High Counselor Vex of the Tribunal stood at the center of the gathering, his ancient face bearing the ceremonial markings of the 7 founding species. The Tribunal served as the galaxy's judicial and diplomatic authority, establishing the rules by which interstellar relations functioned. At nearly 300 standard years old, Vex had personally overseen the integration of 12 species into the galactic community. "The human translator arrives," Vex announced, his voice amplified by the room's acoustic design. "Come forward, Dr. Marcus Rivera of Earth." Marcus approached with the careful, measured pace Kelleth had drilled into him during their preparation sessions. Too fast would suggest aggression, too slow, reluctance. "High Counselor," Marcus said with a formal bow, "Earth is honored by your welcome." Vex's tertiary eyes Small, organic structures above his primary vision organs flicked rapidly, a sign of intense interest that the translation devices often missed. "We have heard remarkable things about your linguistic capabilities. Is it true you can speak without technological assistance?" "Some languages, yes," Marcus replied, "though I'm hardly fluent in all galactic dialects." "A demonstration, perhaps," Vex suggested, though his tone made it clear this was more than a casual request. Marcus nodded, scanning the assembled delegates. The Melnish ambassador floated nearby in his containment field, the gases inside swirling in patterns that indicated curiosity. "To Ambassador Kreen," Marcus said, then switched to the Melnish language, producing a series of carefully modulated whistles and clicks that required precise control of his vocal cords. "May your particles flow in harmony with the universal current." The gas within the Melnish containment field flashed bright blue, a sign of surprise, before settling into pleased orange swirls. "Remarkable!" The Melnish ambassador's translation device broadcast. "The intonation is nearly perfect, with only a slight human accent on the participle forms." Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the gathering. Marcus noticed several species activating recording devices. He suppressed a grimace. He hadn't come here to perform tricks. An insectoid delegation entered the concourse, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the ambient lighting. 8 members of the Veridan hive moved with perfect synchronization, compound eyes reflecting the station's lights in fractured patterns. "The Veridan rarely attend these functions," Keleth whispered to Marcus. "Their hive mind makes individual diplomatic interaction challenging." Marcus had studied Veridan communication extensively, but had never had the opportunity to practice with actual members of the species. Their language was fascinating, a combination of mandible clicks, pheromone releases, and antenna positioning that created a complex, layered means of expression. As the Veridan approached, Marcus felt a strange pressure building behind his eyes. The sensation wasn't painful, but it carried an odd familiarity, as if a long, dormant neural pathway had suddenly reactivated. Without conscious thought, words formed in his mind, ancient syllables in a language he couldn't recall learning. The Veridan stopped before him, their antennae quivering in the formal greeting pattern. Marcus opened his mouth to deliver the standard greeting in Galactic Common, but what emerged instead was a series of precise, resonant sounds in a language he didn't recognize. "Vostarak nil, dominant Vasir null prentier." The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The Veridan delegation recoiled, their synchronized movement shattering into chaotic individual reactions. Throughout the concourse, alarm indicators flashed to life. The ambient lighting shifted from tranquil blue to warning crimson. "What have you done?" High Counselor Vex's voice cut through the sudden commotion, his tertiary eyes fully dilated with shock. Marcus stared at him in confusion. "I don't understand. I just greeted them and—" "That was not a greeting," Vex interrupted, ancient face contorted with what Marcus recognized as fear. "That was ancient Vorak, a dead language, a forbidden language." "Impossible," Marcus said. "I've never studied—" He was interrupted by the station's emergency broadcast system. "Alert security protocol Dormant Ember has been activated. All diplomatic functions suspended. Station entering lockdown procedures." Around them, hidden panels in the walls slid open, revealing security systems previously concealed. The gathered diplomats began retreating toward their respective quarters, many calling frantically for their security details. Keleth gripped Marcus's arm with unexpected strength. "What have you done?" she hissed, her normally composed features twisted with alarm. "I don't know," Marcus replied honestly, the pressure behind his eyes intensifying. "I don't know what language that was or how I spoke it." High Counselor Vex gestured sharply, and 4 tribunal security officers surrounded Marcus. "Dr. Marcus Rivera, you will come with us immediately. The use of ancient Vorak violates Containment Protocol 17 and constitutes a Class 1 diplomatic incident." As the security team escorted him from the concourse, Marcus's personal tablet vibrated in his pocket. When he managed to glance at it, he saw something impossible: files appearing spontaneously on his device. Files he had never downloaded, with timestamps dating back thousands of years. The text pulsed with an almost living rhythm, and though the alphabet was unfamiliar, he found he could read it perfectly. The title of the first file translated in his mind: The Architect's Final Command, Awakening the Dominion Fleet. Station alarms continued to wail as Marcus was led away, and when he glanced back at the concourse, he saw the massive holographic display that normally showed navigational data had changed. It now displayed a spreading pattern of activation signals, moving through nearby star systems, dormant machinery coming to life after 8 millennia of silence. The tribunal's secure chamber was a stark contrast to the organic curves that dominated the rest of Aegis Station. Here, harsh angles and unyielding materials created an atmosphere of severity appropriate for its function as a place of judgment. Marcus sat alone at the center of the room, a containment field humming softly around him. The field wasn't designed to harm, merely to prevent movement beyond its boundaries. 5 tribunal elders, including High Counselor Vex, occupied elevated positions before him, their expressions uniformly grave. "Explain yourself, human," Vex demanded, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "How does a representative of a newly contacted species possess knowledge of ancient Vorak?" "I don't know," Marcus answered truthfully. "I've never studied it. I've never even heard of it until today." "Impossible," declared Elder Kryn, her crystalline form refracting the room's lighting into scattered patterns. "The Vorak language has been quarantined from all academic and linguistic databases for 8,000 years. The punishment for possessing even fragments of its lexicon is immediate memory redaction." Marcus felt the pressure behind his eyes intensify. Words and symbols continued to cascade through his mind, a deluge of information that felt both alien and strangely familiar. "I'm telling you the truth," he insisted. "Something happened when I saw the Veridan delegation. It was as if something woke up inside my head." The elders exchanged glances, their expressions transitioning from suspicion to something that looked uncomfortably like fear. "Scan him," Vex ordered. A medical technician approached, carrying a device that resembled a delicate silver crown. When it was placed on Marcus's head, he felt a slight tingling sensation as it interfaced with his neural pathways. "Remarkable," the technician murmured after several moments. "His neural architecture shows evidence of recent activation patterns consistent with dormant genetic memory. These pathways shouldn't exist in human physiology." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. High Counselor Vex stepped down from his elevated position, approaching the containment field. "It means, Dr. Rivera, that you carry genetic modifications consistent with Vorak biological engineering, modifications that should not be possible in a species from an uncontacted world." The revelation struck Marcus like a physical blow. "That's impossible. Humans haven't been genetically modifying ourselves long enough to—" "Not your doing," Vex interrupted. "Theirs. The architects—" Marcus's tablet vibrated again in his pocket. When he withdrew it, the screen was filled with pulsing text in the ancient language. But now he could understand it perfectly. Diagrams showed star systems, fleet formations, activation protocols, and at the center of it all, a face not human, not entirely alien, watching him through 8 millennia. "The station's systems are responding to him," the technician reported, looking at her monitors with growing alarm. "Dormant subsystems are coming online. Embedded protocols are activating." "Cut all network connections," Elder Kryn ordered. "Isolate this chamber immediately." But it was too late. Throughout the station, consoles began displaying the same ancient text that filled Marcus's tablet. Translation devices spontaneously switched to ancient Vorak, broadcasting fragments of long-forgotten commands. Even the ambient art installations previously displaying peaceful galactic imagery, now showed star systems with spreading patterns of activation. "What's happening?" Marcus demanded, the pressure in his head building to an almost unbearable level. Vex's expression had moved beyond fear to resignation. The Awakening Protocol. The Vorak civilization fell 8,000 years ago, but not before they embedded dormant technologies throughout the galaxy. Technologies designed to reactivate under specific conditions. He fixed Marcus with a penetrating stare. "You are the trigger, Dr. Rivera. Somehow, you carry the genetic key they left behind." On Marcus's tablet, a countdown appeared, the numerals pulsing in time with his heartbeat. "What is this counting down to?" he asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "The full awakening of the Dominion fleet," Vex replied. "The most dangerous armada in galactic history, created by the architect Veltar to ensure the Vorak would never truly fall. Ships capable of cracking planets, harvesting stars for energy. A technological terror we thought safely dormant." As if summoned by the name, the face on Marcus's tablet grew larger, features becoming more defined. Not fully alien, not fully human, a hybrid form designed for a specific purpose. And behind the eyes, a consciousness that reached across time itself. "I can feel him," Marcus whispered, his voice distant to his own ears. "The architect, Veltar, he's inside me somehow." "The genetic memory is activating fully," the technician said, urgency in her voice. "His neural patterns are reconfiguring. We're losing him." Through the haze of invading memories, Marcus became aware of alarms blaring throughout the station. A security officer burst into the chamber, her expression frantic. High Counselor long-range sensors detect energy signatures matching historical records of Vorak vessels. Hundreds of them, powering up across 17 star systems. Vex turned back to Marcus, ancient eyes filled with grim determination. "You must fight this, Dr. Rivera. Whatever connection you have to the architect, you must sever it before the fleet fully activates." But Marcus could barely hear him now. The memories Veltar's memories cascaded through his consciousness. He saw the fall of the Vorak civilization, the desperate plan to ensure their eventual return to power, the careful seeding of genetic markers across promising species throughout the galaxy. "Not just me," Marcus managed to say, his voice strained. "There will be others, fail-safes within fail-safes. The architect planned for every contingency." His tablet projected a holographic display into the air before him, a galactic map with pulsing points of light, representing the awakening fleet. And beneath it, text in ancient Vorak that only he could read. "Speak the final command. Vessel. Unleash the Dominion." Marcus felt his mouth opening, ancient syllables forming on his tongue. With tremendous effort, he clamped his jaw shut, fighting against the compulsion. "I won't," he ground out. "I am not your vessel." The face on the tablet, Veltar's face, regarded him with cold calculation. More text appeared. "You have no choice. The genetic imperative cannot be denied. You are my voice across time." Outside the containment field, the tribunal elders were in frantic consultation with station security. Marcus caught fragments of their conversation: evacuation protocols, emergency broadcasts to warn inhabited systems, preparations for the unthinkable. His attention was drawn back to his tablet as an audio file began playing, a recording of a voice speaking ancient Vorak. The sound bypassed his conscious mind, connecting directly with the implanted genetic memory. Marcus felt his resistance weakening as the words rewrote his very thoughts. "Stop this recording!" Vex shouted. But none of the technicians could access Marcus's tablet through the containment field. The voice continued, each syllable like a key turning in a lock inside Marcus's mind. He felt his identity fragmenting, Veltar's consciousness rising to claim dominance. The tablet displayed the fleet activation progress, 63% complete. With his last fragment of self-awareness, Marcus realized what was happening. The recording wasn't just activating the fleet, it was completing his transformation into Veltar's vessel. Once the process finished, He would willingly speak the final command, and the Dominion fleet would be fully unleashed. Through sheer force of will, Marcus raised his hand and smashed his tablet against the floor of the containment field. The device cracked, but continued functioning, the recording distorting but not stopping. "I need help," he shouted to the tribunal elders. "The recording, it's overwriting my mind." High Counselor Vex stepped to the edge of the containment field, his expression torn between compassion and duty. "I cannot lower this field, Dr. Rivera. If the transformation completes, you would have the power to activate protocols throughout this station that could destroy everyone aboard. Then help me fight it," Marcus pleaded, feeling Veltar's presence expanding through his consciousness. "Tell me about the Vorak. Tell me about Veltar. Knowledge is my only weapon." Understanding dawned in Vex's ancient eyes. "The architect Veltar was not always a conqueror," he began, his voice taking on the cadence of a historian. "The historical records indicate he was once a scientist devoted to preserving his species. The Vorak faced extinction from a cosmic event, a radiation wave that sterilized their home system." As Vex spoke, Marcus latched onto the information, using it to maintain a separate identity from the invading consciousness. "Veltar's early work focused on cultural preservation," Vex continued. "The language you speak was originally designed as a perfect archive, each word containing layers of meaning that could preserve their entire civilization's knowledge." Marcus felt a flicker of the true Veltar beneath the cold conqueror, a desperate scientist racing against extinction, determined that his people would not be forgotten. "What changed him?" Marcus managed to ask, fighting for each word. "Power," Vex replied simply. "The perfect language became a perfect control mechanism. The technology to preserve became technology to dominate. When the cosmic disaster came, Veltar had already transformed from savior to tyrant. The evacuation ships carried not refugees but conquering forces. On Marcus's broken tablet, the fleet activation had reached 78%. The holographic face watched him with growing triumph. "The Vorak conquest lasted 3 centuries, Vex continued, until an alliance of species developed technologies that could counter their command protocols. The Vorak weren't defeated in traditional warfare. Their own ships turned against them when the control language was corrupted." This information sent a jolt through Marcus's mind. The genetic memories recoiled, as if Veltar's consciousness feared this knowledge. "The corruption," Marcus said, seizing on this. "How did they corrupt the language?" "That knowledge was deliberately destroyed," Vex replied, "to prevent it from ever being used again. The Vorak fleet was neutralized and placed in a dormant state, rather than destroyed, a monument to hubris and a resource too valuable to discard." Marcus felt something stir within the invading consciousness, not resistance, but resonance. Part of Veltar recognized the tragedy of his species' fall, even as the rest of him raged against it. "He's not just a conqueror," Marcus said, the realization dawning. "He's the last of his kind. The fleet isn't just a weapon, it's the only remaining testament to his civilization." The tablet's display flickered, the activation progress momentarily pausing at 84%. The face regarded Marcus with something new in its expression: uncertainty. Marcus seized the moment, directing his thoughts inward to address the presence invading his mind. "Veltar, architect, I see you now. I understand what you lost." The pressure in his head shifted, becoming less invasive, more curious. The genetic memory wasn't just imposing control, it was seeking connection. "Dr. Rivera," Vex called, noticing the change. "What's happening?" "He's listening," Marcus replied, not taking his focus from the internal dialogue. "The real Veltar the scientist, not just the conqueror." The holographic face on the tablet shifted, features softening into something that more closely resembled the scientist Veltar had once been. Text appeared beneath it, but no longer as a command. "You understand preservation. You are a keeper of languages." "Yes," Marcus replied aloud. That's why your genetic marker activated in me. We share that core purpose to preserve what would otherwise be lost. My people are gone, the text responded. The fleet is all that remains. And what will you do with it? Marcus challenged. Conquer again or preserve? The question seemed to reverberate through the genetic memory. The fleet activation paused at 89%, suspended between dormancy and full awakening. Marcus sensed vulnerability in the connection, the original Veltar's doubt bleeding through millennia of determination. He pressed his advantage, pushing human emotions through the link: compassion, forgiveness, hope. Your civilization doesn't have to be defined by its end, Marcus said. Let me help preserve what was best about the Vorak. Their knowledge, their art, their true legacy not as conquerors, but as explorers and creators. The holographic face regarded him silently, the ancient eyes containing depths of loneliness that transcended time itself. New text appeared. The final command cannot be unspoken. The fleet awakens. Then let it awaken for a new purpose, Marcus insisted. You encoded your very consciousness into this genetic memory, not just to conquer, but because you feared being forgotten. I can ensure the Vorak are remembered, but not as tyrants. A tremor ran through the station, physical evidence of systems responding to the awakening protocol. On monitors throughout the chamber, the galactic map showed the Dominion fleet reaching 93% activation. High Counselor Vex approached the containment field again. Dr. Rivera, we're detecting energy builds in the fleet consistent with weapons charging. Whatever you're attempting, it may not be enough. Marcus barely heard him, focused entirely on the battle within his own mind. He could feel Veltar's consciousness wavering between its programmed purpose and the true preservation instinct that had created it. You engineered this connection across 8,000 years, Marcus said to the Presence. You ensured your mind would survive when your body couldn't. That wasn't just about power. It was about survival, about continuity. The text on the tablet changed again. The fleet is the continuity. The Dominion is the legacy. No, Marcus countered. You are the legacy. Your knowledge, your experience, your understanding, not your weapons. He pushed deeper into the connection, no longer resisting the genetic memory, but embracing it selectively. He allowed Veltar's scientific knowledge to flow into his mind while rejecting the conquest imperatives. As he did, something unexpected happened. The human elements of his consciousness, his emotions, his capacity for empathy, his ability to forgive flowed in the opposite direction, infiltrating the ancient consciousness embedded in his genes. The holographic face contorted, experiencing human feelings for the first time. The fleet activation faltered at 96%, caught in the same emotional turmoil that now linked Marcus and Veltar across time. This uncertainty, the text read. This doubt. How do you function with such chaos in your thoughts? That chaos is what makes us human, Marcus answered. It's what gives us choice, free will, the ability to change and grow. He felt the moment when the balance shifted, when the rigid certainty of Veltar's programming gave way to human doubt. The countdown to full activation stopped at 97%, neither advancing nor retreating. I can help you, Marcus said, sensing victory within reach. We can preserve the Vorak legacy together, not as conquerors, but as teachers. Show me how to access the fleet's knowledge archives instead of its weapons. For a long moment, the ancient consciousness considered. Then, slowly, the text on the tablet changed. Access protocol modification requires genetic authorization. You must accept my full knowledge willingly. Marcus understood what this meant. Not a hostile takeover of his mind, but a true fusion. He would gain access to everything Veltar knew. And in return, Veltar's consciousness would be permanently altered by human emotion and perspective. I accept, Marcus said without hesitation. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. 8,000 years of knowledge flooded into his mind, not just language and technology, but art, philosophy, the entire cultural heritage of a civilization long vanished from the galaxy. And with it, the command protocols for the Dominion fleet. As the knowledge settled into his transformed consciousness, Marcus felt his hands moving of their own accord, typing commands into his damaged tablet. But these weren't the final command that would unleash destruction. They were preservation protocols, maintenance routines, educational subroutines. Throughout the chamber, the monitoring systems showed the fleet's energy signatures changing, weapons powering down, archive systems activating. The ships remained awake but transformed from an armada poised to conquer into a repository of knowledge ready to be shared. High Counselor Vex watched in astonishment as the containment field around Marcus flickered and died, its control systems responding to commands in ancient Vorak that overrode the station's security. "What have you done?" Vex demanded, though his tone held more wonder than accusation. Marcus looked up, his eyes reflecting the same hybrid consciousness, now visible in the holographic face on his tablet. "I've given Veltar what he truly wanted all along: continuation. Not through conquest, but through sharing. The fleet's weapons are disabled, but its archives are intact. 8,000 years of Vorak civilization, preserved and accessible." "You've merged with the Architect's consciousness," Vex said, understanding dawning. "Is that safe?" Marcus smiled, feeling the ancient presence not as an invader now, but as a collaborator. "Safe? Perhaps not, but necessary. Veltar created the genetic key not just to ensure conquest, but because he couldn't bear the thought of his civilization being forgotten. I've shown him another way to be remembered." On screens throughout the station, the status of the Dominion fleet continued to evolve. Some vessels powered down completely, returning to dormancy. Others maintained minimal functions, their archive systems coming online for the first time in millennia. A small number, perhaps 100 ships, broke from their program formations, assuming new positions that resembled research outposts rather than invasion forces. "The integration is not perfect," Marcus admitted, feeling the lingering tension between human flexibility and Vorak precision within his mind. "Some vessels remain under the original conquest protocols. They'll need to be contained, but the majority have accepted the new directive." "And what is that directive?" Vex asked, still wary despite the evidence of crisis averted. "To learn and to teach," Marcus replied simply. "To preserve rather than destroy. To add the Vorak legacy to the Galactic community as contributors, not conquerors." The station's emergency alarms finally silenced, the lighting returning to its normal, peaceful blue. Through the chamber's observation port, Marcus could see diplomatic vessels cautiously emerging from emergency shelters, their crews uncertain of what had transpired. His tablet projected a final message from the merged consciousness, now sharing his mind. "The awakening is complete, but not as intended. The Dominion ends. The exchange begins." 6 months later, the station, formerly known as Aegis, had been renamed Cultural Exchange Station Elysium. Where once the sterile corridors had hosted tense diplomatic negotiations, they now teemed with scholars, scientists, and cultural emissaries from across the galaxy. Marcus stood on the observation deck, watching the controlled approach of a Vorak archive vessel, a massive structure of gleaming metal and crystalline appendages that had once been a planet-cracking weapon of war. Now, its central hold had been converted into the largest library in known space, housing physical artifacts preserved from the ancient Vorak homeworld. "Still difficult to believe," said Captain Elena Rodriguez of Earth Defense, who had arrived with the latest human delegation. 6 months ago, we were facing potential galactic annihilation. Now we're planning joint archaeological expeditions with ships that predate human civilization." Marcus smiled, though the expression carried a hint of the ancient wisdom that now lived behind his eyes. The universe is full of second chances, Captain. The Vorak just needed 8,000 years to get theirs. His integration with Veltar's consciousness had stabilized over the months since the awakening. The hybrid mind that resulted was neither fully human nor fully Vorak, but something unprecedented, a bridge between species separated by millennia. The tribunal remains concerned, Elena noted, watching the archive ships approach, especially about the vessels that rejected the new protocols. The reports say they've gone silent, vanished into uncharted regions. 93 ships, Marcus confirmed. Still operating under the Conquest Directive. We'll find them eventually. He tapped his temple. I can sense them, distantly. They're confused, without the full network to support them. They're seeking purpose. Ambassador Kelleth approached, her willowy form now adorned with the silver markings that indicated her new role as Zenthari representative to the Cultural Exchange Initiative. Dr. Rivera, the Veridan delegation has arrived. They're particularly interested in discussing the linguistic similarities between their communication patterns and ancient Vorak harmonics. I'll be there shortly, Marcus replied. As Kelleth departed, he turned back to Elena. The Veridan were one of the species the Vorak considered for genetic modification before their fall. The similarities aren't coincidental. Elena shook her head in amazement. How many more surprises are buried in that knowledge you carry? Thousands, Marcus admitted. Some wonderful, some terrifying. The Vorak weren't saints, Captain. They were conquerors for 3 centuries before their fall, but they were also artists, philosophers, explorers. Their legacy is as complex as any civilization's. Through the viewport, they watched as the archive ship took its designated position, massive hull gleaming in the light of the local star. Smaller vessels, research ships from 24 species approached in careful formation, ready to begin the day's collaborative studies. And what about you? Elena asked quietly. How much of Marcus Rivera remains in there? It was a question he'd been asked countless times over the past months, by diplomatic officials, medical specialists, and his own family back on Earth. The answer remained the same. All of me, he said. And more besides. Veltar's consciousness didn't replace mine. It expanded it. I still feel, think, and choose as Marcus. I just do so with the benefit of 8 millennia of additional perspective. High Counselor Vex approached, his ancient face bearing new markings that indicated his role as official tribunal liaison to the Exchange Initiative. The Melnish researchers have made a significant discovery in Archive Vessel 17, he announced without preamble. They've recovered artistic representations of the cosmic event that threatened the Vorak homeworld. It appears to have been a directed energy weapon, not a natural phenomenon. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Someone attacked them that wasn't in Veltar's memories. Perhaps not all memories were preserved in the genetic encoding, Vex suggested. Or perhaps some were deliberately omitted. This new information sent ripples through the hybrid consciousness in Marcus's mind. He felt Veltar's surprise, and beneath it, a flicker of something that might have been suppressed knowledge. I need to see these artifacts, Marcus said, already moving toward the shuttle bay. There's more, Vex added, falling into step beside him. The attack signatures match weapons technology developed by a species called the Progenitors, a species that vanished nearly 10,000 years ago, shortly before the Vorak expansion began. The implications were staggering. If the Vorak conquest had been not just ambition, but retaliation against a perceived enemy. The story is never as simple as we think, Marcus murmured, feeling the weight of history, both human and Vorak, pressing upon him. Every villain believes themselves the hero of their own narrative. As they boarded the shuttle, bound for Archive Vessel 17, Marcus felt the presence in his mind shift and settle. The tension between human empathy and Vorak precision had evolved into something balanced, a perspective that could see both the necessity of order and the value of chaos. The shuttle detached from Elysium Station, gliding smoothly toward the massive archive ship. Through the viewport, Marcus could see dozens of smaller vessels in various stages of approach or departure, a collaborative fleet where once there had been only conquest. "What do you think we'll find?" Vex asked, as the archive ship's docking bay opened to receive them. Marcus smiled, feeling both the human curiosity and the ancient knowledge within him aligning in shared purpose. "Context," he replied, "and with it, perhaps, understanding." The shuttle passed through the energy field that separated the docking bay from space, settling gently onto the ancient deck. As Marcus stepped out into the cavernous hold of a vessel built 8 millennia before his birth, he felt a profound sense of connection, not just to Veltar and the Vorak, but to the grand tapestry of galactic history itself, where the Dominion had sought to impose a single pattern. The exchange now wove countless threads together, and at the intersection of past and future, ancient and modern, precision and chaos, stood a human linguist who had learned to speak with the voice of the dead and in doing so, had awakened not destruction, but possibility. The hybrid consciousness that was both Marcus Rivera and Veltar the Architect looked out at the gathered researchers from a dozen worlds and spoke in a voice that bridged 8,000 years. "Today, we continue the work of true preservation, not through conquest or control, but through connection and understanding. The Vorak sought immortality through dominance. They have found it instead through collaboration. Let us proceed with the exchange." And throughout the fleet, that had once been the galaxy's greatest threat, ancient systems responded to the hybrid voice, transforming from weapons of war to instruments of discovery. The most dangerous armada in galactic history had become, against all probability, its greatest repository of knowledge. All because a human translator had spoken a dead language, and in doing so, had taught both the living and the dead the power of finding new words.